Okay, thank you. Good morning, everyone, and welcome back to day 2 of our EPSCoR PI meeting. I hope that you rested well last evening and that you're ready for another day of a good engagement and good information. So for those of you who were not able to join my welcome presentation on yesterday, I'll start by just sharing that I'm Sandra Richardson, the EPSCoR head, and I joined our EPSCoR team in February from a different part of NSF. I came from the Division of Undergraduate Education, the Education Human Resources Directorate. And as just a general reminder, all the slides from all the sessions will be shared with participants. So if you did miss my welcome yesterday, I encourage you to go back once the slides are shared, just to get a better feel for what I see as priorities under my leadership of EPSCoR, and where the section in general is heading, and some efforts that are coming out of some ongoing activities. And I'll share some of that again today, but I won't do a deep dive as we did yesterday. In this session today, which is our first session of day 2, my intent is just to share some general program updates. Some will be some reiteration of some of the remarks I made yesterday, but again, not at the same level. In fact, I'm going to rename this session as EPSCoR Highlights and Updates. So some of it will be highlights, some will be reminders, and some will be updates. So again, just be on the lookout for all the presentation slides along with the recordings. It will be posted on the conference website, and our meeting support team, Cyber Synergy, will send out a notice to all of our registered participants when the website has been updated with the slides and the recordings. So I'm ready to just kind of kick off the morning. I always like to start by acknowledging our team. They do a great deal of work that's associated with EPSCoR, and so I like you to see the faces of the program. So these are the people that make things work. And again, I'm just so fortunate to be a part of the team. In addition to me being new to the program, I do want to share a couple of other staffing updates with you as a part of this updates presentation. One, some of you may know that our program officer, Tim Van Rieken, is away this year on a long-term professional development opportunity as he is completing a fellowship on Capitol Hill. And so we're really excited for that opportunity with Tim. I also want to share that we are in the hiring phase of bringing a new rotator program officer on board to join our team. I expect that to happen later this year. And I particularly am grateful to this community that really stepped up and helped us recruit. You disseminated the DCL that called for IPA interest within your own networks and communities, and some of you even applied. And so thank you very much for that. We received a very rich set of candidates this round, and I know a lot of that is due to work within our community in terms of making sure we had a good pool of candidates. So I want to thank you for that, and just stay tuned for the new IPAs that will join our team. In May, we also were very fortunate to add a program officer detailee. A detailee is someone who visits a new part of NSF coming from a different part of NSF. And so Dr. John Haddock joined our team as a detailee program officer in May, and we're just delighted to have John on board. He has years of experience with the University of Memphis, but also years of experience at NSF. John comes from our EHR, Education Human Resources Director, and he'll be with us through the end of the summer. He's primarily working with our Track 4 Research Fellows program, and also our Bridging EPSCoR Communities, that new effort that we talked a bit about yesterday. So that's it for me on staffing updates. This morning, I'll start with just some general NSF updates. I find that that's a good way to kind of set the stage for our EPSCoR specific highlights and updates. So after the NSF updates, I'll segue into our EPSCoR specific updates. and then just wrap up with some general reminders about, the ways that you as PIs can remain engaged in our NSF EPSCoR community. And I expect us to have sufficient time for additional conversation this morning. I hope I don't talk for a full hour. That is certainly not my intent, but again, sometimes I do get carried away with stories and examples, but I'll try to keep an eye on the clock so that if we have questions, we have a chance to actually answer them. So I'll jump right into the NSF updates and share a little additional information with you. And again, some of this we touched briefly on yesterday, but I thought that it would be a good idea to kick off this session with a highlight of NSF's core goals. There are 3 pillars in particular that support our NSF mission of promoting the progress of science in ways that benefit the U.S. public in general, and our director's vision for achieving that particular mission. And so you see those 3 pillars on this screen here: advancing the frontiers of research into the future, ensuring accessibility and inclusivity, and securing global leadership. And so as you think about these 3 pillars, I hope, just in words alone, immediately you think about how EPSCoR is situated within each of the pillars. EPSCoR's goals and our program's impact really embody all 3 pillars and demonstrate the power of partnership, which you see transcending across the pillars. In particular, a geographic distribution of STEM research and workforce development opportunities across the United States is really a key challenge for inclusivity. And as EPSCoR's head is one that I am certainly deeply committed to. And as I shared some information around that yesterday with you, NSF's mandate is to promote science nationwide, and EPSCoR certainly allows us to truly fulfill that call as we make sure that across the nation really means every part of the nation and every institution type, and not just places that already have extensive research infrastructure. As both Alicia Needler and I mentioned yesterday during the opening session, NSF has a new strategic plan for fiscal years 2022 through 2026. This was released in late March, and it lays out our mission and vision and strategic objectives for the next 5 years, including a vision for accelerating research and innovation, and share some exciting examples of new opportunities in science and engineering research. So I encourage you, again, in your spare time, just browse it as time permits, just to get a feel for the plan for the agency, again, because the agency plan certainly impacts EPSCoR's plan and EPSCoR's efforts. There are 4 strategic priority goals that are identified in the plan. They all very strategically align with EPSCoR goals. I think you will agree. I'll give you a quick summary of each. The first goal: empower STEM talent to fully participate in science and engineering, aims to accelerate the advancement of discovery and learning, and ensure that all citizens share in the benefits that flow from research. NSF will promote inclusion in the research community and STEM workforce, access to STEM learning and training, and widespread STEM literacy. The second goal is around creating new knowledge about our universe, our world, and ourselves. And this goal in particular aims to advance knowledge through investments in innovative ideas and people and infrastructure, all to advance the practice of research. The third goal is around benefiting society by translating knowledge into solution, and it focuses on delivering benefits from research by advancing the discovery and accelerating, again, innovation, but particular innovation that addresses societal challenges and cultivates global science and engineering, a community-based approach. And then the last goal is on excelling at NSF operations and management. And this goal includes specific strategies to attract, retain, and empower a talented and diverse workforce, and also efforts to continually improve our agency operations. As another bit of NSF updates, as you know, we are all still very excited about the announcement, the formal announcement of our new directorate, the Technology Innovation and Partnerships Directorate, or TIP. It's NSF's first directorate in more than 30 years. So, of course, this is something for not only us at NSF, but for our external community as well, to also be really excited about and keep your eyes on and think about ways that your work can certainly be engaged with TIP efforts. TIP is a cross-cutting directorate that really collaboratively integrates with NSF's existing directorates and fosters opportunities for partnership with other government agencies, with industry, with nonprofits, and communities of practice, all with the goal of leveraging, energizing, and bringing to society youth-inspired research and innovation. Our TIP Assistant Director, Erwin Giachanani, will give a separate presentation later this afternoon. It's the last session for today, so I hope that you all are able to attend, and I don't want to steal any of Erwin's thunder, but I'll say that through TIP, NSF's plans to launch a series of integrative activities. Many of the activities and opportunities certainly the EPSCoR community will be very interested in, and there'll be opportunities for engagement. And so just stay tuned, and I hope that, you know, I'm mentioning this early on so that, you know, to begin to percolate ideas and questions that you may have for Erwin when he comes to talk with us later on this afternoon. And I won't say much about our organizational structure, but I thought in terms of updates, it would be important to note that the Convergence Accelerator Program, which used to be housed in the Office of Integrative Activities, which is the same office EPSCoR is housed in, that program has been moved to TIP, to the new directorate. And so just as FYI, Convergence Accelerator is now a part of TIP. I also want to share with you that NSF offers a variety of fact sheets about NSF and our bold investments in basic research. The 6 areas that you see on the screen represent a sample of the fact sheets that provide an overview of some of our NSF supported research across all fields of science and engineering, and impact on the American people. And I like to just point this out because I find that oftentimes the general community at large are not aware of the fact sheets, and they can be very useful to answer a lot of the questions that you have or to think more about the work that you're doing. So I certainly want to point you to these and make sure that you know that, that they're available. For example, the NSF state-by-state fact sheets provide rich, fast facts for fiscal year 21 about each of your jurisdictions, including the total number of NSF awards and the amount invested in fundamental research, the amount invested in STEM education, the amount invested in startups, the top funded NSF institutions in the jurisdiction. All of that's publicly available and in a really easy to read and succinct format. EPSCoR has its own fact sheet under the research programs umbrella. So I'm just pointing you to these resources, and certainly you may want to check them out if they will benefit you at all. As a part of that fact sheet pool, there is the NSF by the numbers fact sheet, which includes summaries on lots of other data that you see on the screen, annual trend lines for proposal evaluated, new awards funded institutions, and lots more. There were some questions yesterday with folks that I talked with about number of proposals received. And so I just want to, point you to this publicly available data just to give you a bit more context about what's happening, not only within EPSCoR jurisdictions, but throughout the country as well. And then on yesterday, we talked a little bit about the fiscal year 23 budget request. Many of you likely know that NSF's fiscal year 23 budget request to Congress includes $10.5 billion for NSF's vision of advancing the frontiers of research and ensuring accessibility and inclusivity and securing global leadership, those three pillars that I talked with you about earlier. The budget request for EPSCoR for fiscal year 23 is around $247 million. I do want to note that this is not the final fiscal year 23 budget. It's just a request for both NSF and EPSCoR, of course, included. The request is merely a proposal by the administration and is subject to congressional review as our congressional colleagues have authority that gives them the power to appropriate funds. So we're really early in this process, but I did want to just give you an update of where we are. The bullets that you see on the screen, we walked through between Alicia and I yesterday in our opening remarks. We sort of walked through them all, so I won't reiterate them. But this is just a high-level summary of where we are with fiscal year 23 efforts. So let's segue into a discussion around EPSCoR specific highlights and reminders and updates all wrapped up in one. As you know, EPSCoR has three investment strategies. Our research improvement, infrastructure improvement strategy is certainly our largest dollar investment of our annual budget. These investments are commonly referred to, you hear us talk about tracks 1, 2, 3, and 4. And so this money goes towards supporting the physical, human, and cyber infrastructure needs within academic institutions across all of our jurisdictions. Our other investment strategies are co-funding and workshop and outreach. So the co-funding investment strategy is specifically designed to accelerate the movement of mainstream EPSCoR researchers and institutions and jurisdictions into that mainstream NSF support. And so on yesterday, I talked with you about, certainly being present in EPSCoR funding efforts, but being present outside of EPSCoR and submitting to programs outside of the EPSCoR program and being competitive. And I often tell potential PIs and PIs that one thing I know is that the proposal that will not be funded is the one that is not received. And so we have to be, proactive and think about ways that we can make sure that our EPSCoR PI community is actually engaged with the rest of NSF funding efforts. And so this is just another plug for you that as, we have people from other directorates visiting with us throughout the PI meeting. I encourage you to engage with them and talk about what makes a competitive proposal and, what are some specific tips for successes. And always reach out to the cognitive program officers, throughout the agency for respective programs where your work actually is aligned with and situates within. And then lastly, I'll comment on our workshops and outreach investment strategy. Of course, we want to promote continuously interaction with and throughout the EPSCoR community and NSF. And so we welcome workshop and outreach proposals. If you have a workshop or outreach idea, the best thing to do is certainly follow up with a cognizant program officer and have some additional discussions around the idea and potential next steps. Just in line with my earlier comment about co-funding, I did want to just highlight one co-funding effort. We've recently co-funded with NSF Includes the Cultivating Indigenous Research Communities for Leadership in Education and STEM, which the acronym is CIRCLES Alliance. And this alliance is a partnership between 6 states in the western half of the United States, including North Dakota, South Dakota, Wyoming, New Mexico, Montana, and Idaho. And the goal is to address the underrepresentation of American Indian and Alaska Native students in STEM disciplines and in the STEM workforce. We partner with NSF Includes to also introduce the NSF Includes First Two Network Alliance, which endeavors to improve the college enrollment rates and success of undergraduate STEM students, with a specific emphasis on rural and first-generation students by providing them with STEM research experiences and peer mentoring and student advocacy. And the Alliance is particularly focused on students in EPSCoR states. And so this is just, some quick snapshots of efforts in terms of where our co-funding dollars have gone. And there are lots more, of course, that I can share with you. Through all of our different investment strategies, we are constantly working on connections and collaborations and partnerships. And I know that in your own projects and in your own work, you're doing the same. And so we have a very large variety of external stakeholders, and I'll even go as far as saying external partners. And all of that certainly feeds into the work that we do in the EPSCoR program. And so on this slide here, you just see a subset of our stakeholders. Of course, this circle is much broader, but we use all of our interactions and collaborations with these groups to sort of reach broader pools. And so we want to make sure that we're reaching all the types of institutions in the jurisdictions, and also engaging with our industry partners and national labs, and making sure that our investment strategies are sort of threaded through all of this particular work. And then at the agency level, at the NSF level, again, we're really engaged in the work through our partnerships efforts across the agency. And a lot of that does often come in the form of co-funding efforts throughout the different directorates at NSF, but also outreach and our ongoing efforts with our Office of Legislative and Public Affairs team. You'll hear from Opa later today with some specific updates. And then certainly with our workshop efforts that I talked about earlier, and engagement again with program officers throughout the agency. And then within OIA in general, there's lots of ongoing activities that are impacting both our internal and external partnerships. Yesterday, we talked about EPSCoR's collaboration with our Evaluation and Assessment Capabilities section, EAC, in particular in alignment with NSF's recent release of our learning agenda, where there's a specific call out to some evaluation and assessment needs and plans for EPSCoR around the priority questions in the new NSF learning agenda. And so in addition to collaborative efforts with EAC, just generally speaking, internally, as I shared with you yesterday, as a part of one of my priorities, we certainly want to make sure that we are keeping EPSCoR evaluation and assessment on the top of the list in terms of both looking at our impacts, but also looking at our partnership efforts. This slide here shows us a general EPSCoR timeframe. This timeframe is certainly subject to change depending on programmatic priorities and EPSCoR needs, but I did want to situate a lot of our work and align it with a particular timeframe, just to help you as our PI community sort of wrap your head around the many efforts that are ongoing. And so here we'll just take fiscal year 22 as an example. In the fall of this fiscal year, our track 1 merit review happened, along with our track 2 solicitation release. And we also had site visits for our year 4 track 1 projects. And speaking of this fall fiscal year 22, we'll have a group of site visits that'll happen in September, and then there'll be one that'll roll over likely until the winter. And in winter of fiscal year 22, our track 2 proposals came in, and track 1 proposals went to the director's review board, all with the expectation of rolling up until spring, which is sort of the period that we're in now, where annual and final reports will be due. And again, we just completed a round of virtual reverse site visits for our year 2 track 1 awardees. You heard yesterday from our program officers, and heard mentioned that our track 1 solicitation, stay tuned for additional information on that. And track 4 proposals recently came in, and track 2, the merit review process wrapped up in the spring. And then our new effort, the Bridging EPSCoR Communities, had proposals come in April, which rolls us over into the summer months. And the BEC proposals are now undergoing merit review. Track 4 proposals also undergoing the merit review process. And we hope by the end of the summer, we'll see a new round of track 1 submissions. And so just to give you a general overview of where we are, dates are very fluid, but just giving you a general overview in terms of the quarters of the year where the work is situated. EPSCoR, of course, has made a very concerted effort to provide opportunities to those that have been disproportionately challenged by the COVID-19 pandemic. We talked yesterday, our program lead, JD Swanson, talked about the track 2 supplements that were a direct result from that as one example. And I'll also share with you that EPSCoR has recently provided significant co-funding to support the Campus Cyber Infrastructure Program, or CC STAR program, that's housed in our Computer and Information Science and Engineering Directorate. And we also, of course, launched our new fiscal year 22 effort around the Bridging EPSCoR Communities program. And so all of these efforts are sort of direct responses to challenges that the community has been engaged in around impacts by COVID-19. So in terms of the future of EPSCoR visioning activity, there's certainly lots of interest and engagement around this particular activity. And so I want to just start by just giving a general thank you to all who have been engaged in any aspect of the activity, and certainly to our subcommittee and our subcommittee chairs who have spent a great deal of time ensuring that they collect the needed feedback and prepare the needed details so that NSF can receive a set of recommendations and suggestions from the committee via a full report. So as a reminder, 19 individuals were selected to serve on the Future of EPSCoR committee, which began its work in August of 2021. The committee solicited comments from the public and various stakeholders in different venues, including holding multiple listening sessions, and they are finalizing their report. Many of you participated in those listening sessions and other areas of providing feedback. And as you know, on the meeting agenda on Thursday, the subcommittee co-chairs will be here to give us a healthy report out. And so that will be a good opportunity to engage with the co-chairs if you have questions, if you have feedback, or general comments that you want to share. And so I for now, say stay tuned until Thursday for additional conversation. I did get a great question yesterday around just timeline in general and NSF's response to the report. And I think it's worth repeating the question if I can get it correct here, and repeating my response to the question. And so the question was something around, what is the specific timeline for release of the report, as well as NSF's responses to the report. And so again, I'll say stay tuned for Kelly and Jose's presentation tomorrow. I certainly don't want to steal their thunder, but I'll say that the expectation is certainly that the report will be shared with the NSF sometime in the coming months. And once that happens, NSF will begin to not only have conversations around the detail of the report, but begin to put together our implementation plan based on those priorities that I shared with you yesterday. And so the plan is to incorporate that input into an implementation plan that will rely on, evidence-based metrics, the details from the report of Future of EPSCoR, but lots of all those other inputs that we talked about yesterday. As you know, fiscal year 23 activities are sort of already rolled out based on what I told you earlier about the budget. And so in terms of timeline, we likely, in terms of implementation, are thinking beyond fiscal year 23 in terms of direct implementation. But hopefully we'll be able to get the report, as we said, in the next few months, and then actually begin to start rolling some things out periodically. The other relevant engagement activity that will impact the future of EPSCoR is our GAO engagement. And so this is another activity that is underway. As a reminder, this was an engagement that was congressionally requested. We at NSF have responded to several data requests from the Government Accountability Office, GAO. We are really expecting to be at the end of this process and expecting a final report relatively soon. So sometime this summer, I would even veer to say. And so stay tuned for that as well. We'll certainly keep the community updated, but this is another piece that, again, will go into thinking about future opportunities for EPSCoR. I do want to spend a little bit of time talking with you about our program monitoring system. And you'll hear me sometime refer to the program monitoring system as the data entry portal. For me, they're synonymous terms, so I'll use them interchangeably. This is primarily relevant to our Track 1 and Track 2 awardees. So within the coming months, EPSCoR expects to roll out a new program monitoring system. The data entry portal is really designed to streamline data collection across all of our research infrastructure, improvement investments, and provide multi-level analysis. And so it will replace the current spreadsheets that Track 1 and Track 2 projects must submit with their annual reports. The contract for this system was recently awarded to Creative Business Solutions, or CBS. CBS is a company with a very extensive experience in customized data creation and a positive history of work on the development and implementation of data portals across NSF programs. And so we're expecting a user-friendly system, but also a system that will give us at NSF the data that we need in a very standardized and comprehensive manner. And so I do want to share with you, a little bit about, why the program monitoring system and this transition is really important. And I do that because I think back to my days as a PI even, and just the sometimes additional burden that reporting data, and the strain can cause. But I want you to understand the importance of this process, as I think you do anyway. But it's worth me just mentioning here that, certainly as a part of this whole process, our goal is really to improve the accuracy of your data reporting needs and to standardize efforts across all of our programs. And so we're thinking about this in terms of data that we need at NSF, how we need to receive it, but also thinking about our community where there is overlap between some of our programs, and we want to sort of standardize the ways that we're collecting data across all aspects of our programs. We want to certainly also allow for analysis at the different levels. So the project level, whole award cohort levels, at track levels, at programmatic levels. And so we have all of this in mind as we're thinking about the types of data that we're requesting, as well as the way that we will collect them and analyze it. And then as additional piece, we're really interested in increasing support for the visualization of the data that we're receiving, and this new portal will help us actually do that. And to loop back to lots of earlier conversations around our learning agenda, we see the data portal as another means for helping us address some of those key and critical questions that are included in the learning agenda. And so the types of data you collect and the way that we're collecting it will be helpful for us to directly answer some of those learning agenda questions. In terms of what you need to do now, what I'll say in response to that is stay in touch with your cognizant program officer and just be on the lookout for additional information from EPSCoR regarding next steps. I'll mention that we are looking for beta testers in tracks 1 and 2 for this new portal. So, if you're interested in saying, hey, count me in, I want to be a part of the test group, we encourage you to reach out to us within the next week. So it'll be helpful to have a feel of those who are interested by the 23rd of May. And it's not that you'll need to do any work by then, but we just want to know of interest. So if you're interested in being a beta tester, please reach out to us at the email address that you see on the screen, NSF EPSCoR at nsf.gov, or simply you can reach out to your cognizant program officer and they know how to coordinate with us to express your interest. There'll likely be a stakeholder meeting sometime later this summer and some additional webinars and demos that we'll roll out. So again, just be on the lookout for additional information and communications. And certainly if you have any questions about this entire process, you can use the email alias that you see on the screen, or simply just have a conversation with your cognizant program officer as needed. Okay, I'll spend a little bit of time just giving some general updates and in some cases reminders about a specific funding related to EPSCoR. I thought it would be great to start this section with this slide, just showing the average annual amount of NSF research funds that are given to each cohort. For the initial 5 years, you can see that's the hatch bars. And then the most recent 5 years, which is the solid bars of the cohort's participation in the NSF EPSCoR program. And just as a reminder, a cohort is defined as the group of states, or in some cases jurisdictions, that entered the EPSCoR program within a given fiscal year. So for example, the 1980 cohort consists of the initial 5 states that qualified for EPSCoR, so Arkansas, Maine, Montana, South Carolina, and West Virginia. And then the 2000 plus cohort consists of the 9 jurisdictions that entered EPSCoR in fiscal year 2000 or later and are still eligible for our research infrastructure improvement competitions. Former EPSCoR jurisdictions, is important to note, are excluded because they were not EPSCoR eligible in fiscal year 21. So as we talk about that 2000 plus cohort. But what the message I want you to carry away from this slide is that each cohort shows an increase in competitiveness over the periods of participation. So for example, the 1980 cohort shows a 76% increase in NSF research funding over the past 41 years of EPSCoR activity. The 8 jurisdiction 1985 cohort demonstrates a 74% increase during its 36 years of participation in EPSCoR. The 4 jurisdiction 1987 cohort shows a 73% increase. And the 2 jurisdiction 1992 cohort has a 54% increase in competitiveness. Currently eligible jurisdictions participating in EPSCoR since fiscal year 2000 entered the program at a higher level of NSF research funding than previous cohort. So for the 2000 plus cohort, there's been a small, but yet still relevant, I would dare to say, increase in research funding. And that increase looks like around 15%. But overall, I want to highlight that there's some jurisdictions that have more than doubled their share of NSF funding since they first entered EPSCoR. And to me, that's a metric of success that I want to make sure doesn't get lost in our story. And that's always front and center when we talk about the impacts of the jurisdictions. If you're more interested in finding where your respective jurisdiction sort of lies in terms of NSF research support by cohorts, you can look for your jurisdiction here on this particular slide and see, first column is where you were in the initial 5 years, and then the last column represents the most recent 5 years. And so I won't go through it all, but I'll leave this slide up just for a second so you can eyeball it, find your respective jurisdiction here and look at the measure of success. On this particular slide, as you can see, our funding in EPSCoR has been consistently increasing. Our fiscal year 22 enacted funding level is $215 million. And I hope that you can see as well with our funding increases over time, the program has certainly evolved and grown to include lots of activities and efforts that look like new tracks and other initiatives like our planning grants and multiple DCL opportunities and supplement offerings and lots more. And so you can also see here on the chart that really the majority of our funds do go directly to our research infrastructure improvement awards, with co-funding coming in second, as we talked about earlier, and then a small percent of the budget going to our outreach efforts. This table presents a simpler snapshot of our budget allocation over the last 5 years. Our co-funding has increased in the past year as we have expanded our opportunities to providing co-funding to center scale and mid-scale awards. And I shared some other co-funding successes with you earlier, but you can kind of see on this screen over the past 5 years, among our 3 investment strategies, you can sort of track where the funding is going. This graph represents the total NSF funding across our research and education directorates and also our major research equipment and facilities construction to EPSCoR jurisdictions over the past 10 years, with the proportion of funding from the EPSCoR program shown in orange and the overall NSF funding shown in at the bottom in blue. EPSCoR funding alone accounts for somewhere between 16 and 21% of the funding that jurisdictions receive annually, and it varies depending on the respective year. And if we average it out, it's somewhere around 18% approximately. I'll note that these calculations include formerly eligible jurisdictions during the years that they receive any type of EPSCoR funding. And so this includes those years that they had an active EPSCoR award that was awarded prior to losing eligibility, and also includes any co-funding that continued for the 3 years following their exit from EPSCoR. I'll also just share with you that this graphic that actually shares that EPSCoR program funding currently varies In terms of our overall NSF funding annually, we fluctuate between 2 and 3% of NSF's budget, and EPSCoR jurisdictions receive between approximately 13 to 16% of NSF funding annually, and this includes the funding that EPSCoR provides. So I'll wrap up by just a few reminders about ways that you can stay engaged. Certainly, it's very important to remain engaged with your cognizant program officer. They are the first line of contact, so I encourage you to get to know your PO, especially for our new PIs. That's really a very important relationship to make sure that you contribute to and that you build upon. And certainly on our side, we just try very hard to do the same thing. I also, like to remind our PIs anytime that I'm talking with you that really it's important to consider serving as a reviewer for EPSCoR, but even outside of EPSCoR to other programs throughout NSF, I encourage you to continue to think about ways to not only engage with us, but make a contribution to the broader community through service at NSF, and reviewing is one of those ways to do that. And another way to do that is to, come and work with us for some time. So there's always lots of IPA program officer opportunities. I shared with you earlier how appreciative I was that you have disseminated our earlier call into your own communities. And I encourage you to continue to do that as you see new announcements offered both within EPSCoR and in other parts of the agency. That's really a very critical way to remain involved. And then certainly staying up to date on our programs and additional opportunities is really important. We try to make sure that we keep our website updated, and that's generally the first place that you can go to find out any new news or announcements. And so please continue to do that. And most importantly, consider leveraging your EPSCoR awards and your EPSCoR funded research to gain NSF funding in other areas outside of EPSCoR. We are very proud of our awardees and the impacts and the outcomes of our projects, and want you to use that to be successful in other programs at NSF. And so I want to encourage you again, as people are here throughout the PI meeting from other parts of NSF, please do engage with them and think and talk about ways that you can be successful in these programs. Just a quick snapshot of what's on tap for the rest of the day. Today will be another full day. Following me, you'll have an opportunity to hear from the head of our policy office. Jean Feldman is here to talk with you. And then after Jean, we'll take a break and go to lunch, and we'll come back and hear from Beth Blue on the some NSF budget updates specifically. And then our OPA office head, Amanda Greenwell, will be here to talk with you. And then we'll wrap up the day with a visit from the assistant director from our new TIP directorate, Erwin Giachandani. And so a very full day. I hope that everyone is able to stick around the entire day. And certainly remember, you can use your question and answer box in Zoom to engage with the presenters in this virtual webinar format. And I'll wrap up with just two things that I shared with you yesterday, but for those of you who were not here, just a reminder that the EPSCoR program recently rolled out a new website. And so I encourage you to go visit it. We still have the same link, but check out the new website and periodically visit it. That's where I expect for all of our updates and announcements to be posted. And then very lastly, again, congratulations to our new Track 1 awardees for fiscal year 22. Kudos all the way around to our 5 jurisdictions that are represented in our fiscal year 22 awards: Alabama, Hawaii, Kansas, Nevada, and Wyoming. So I will pause here, and I think we have a little bit of additional time. Certainly, if there are questions, I'll stop sharing. If there are any questions, I'm happy to answer them. And I will first start by looking in the chat to see if anything's there. All right, so thank you for one question about co-funding. I'll just read it aloud. How does co-funding of center type awards work? These types of grants typically involve non-EPSCoR partners, absolutely. Would a proposal qualify as long as the lead organization is from an EPSCoR state? So thank you for the question, actually a very good question, and I'll speak to this just in general in terms of any co-funding effort. Co-funding is an internal mechanism, so generally when a submitter is submitting, there's no indication of, this will possibly be co-funded or not be co-funded. It's an internal effort that we work on. And so, yes, if the lead submitter is from a co-funding eligible state, the respective directorate will reach out to us, and we have a whole protocol on how that goes. We do a lot of in-reach within NSF to make sure all the directorates are on board. But yes, that entity for a center scale project or any project would be eligible to receive co-funding support, working on the assumption that a lot of other sort of requirements are met, and we have priority areas that we look at for co-funding as well. Thank you for the question. Okay, anything else this morning? It's sort of hard because I can't see you. I can't read your facial expressions, but certainly if you have anything that you want to ask about or you're thinking about or comments, please do use the question and answer box. Otherwise, we can take a 9-minute break. And I'll be around if anybody does have anything, but I don't see anything coming through. So let's plan to just take a short break. And if everyone can be back by 59 after the hour, wherever you are, for our next presenter, Jean Philman from our policy office. Okay, thank you, everyone. Always a delight to talk with you.
So Jean, I think Sandra finished a little early, so we're going to get started right at 11 o'clock for your session.
Perfect, thank you.
You're welcome. Okay, Jean, are you ready?
I certainly am.
Alrighty, I'll go ahead and pull your slides up.
Thank you.
You're welcome. That's full screen, right? No notes.
Yes, yes,
Okay.
ma'am. Let me know when you want me to get started.
We'll get started right at 11, and the time is now 11, so the floor is yours.
Okay, thank you so much.
You're welcome.
Well, it is a delight to be here once again to present the NSF Proposal and Award Policy Update. This is an important part of my schedule every year, and I always am delighted to attend the EPSCoR PI meetings. Next slide, please. So my name is Jean Feldman, has already been mentioned by Sandra. I am the head of policy of the policy office, which is in the Division of Institution and Award Support, which is part of the Office of Budget, Finance, and Award Management. I have served in this capacity for many, many years and have been at NSF for over 35 years. And like I said, these outreach opportunities give me a great sense of glee and being able to let you all know what the latest and greatest is. And I look forward to presenting those to you now. So next slide, please. So the topics that we're going to cover today are actually very important to all of you. I am going to be talking about a draft proposal and award policies and procedures guide, PAP guide for short, that has been posted in the Federal Register for public comment. And this is a great opportunity for me to give you a heads up of what the kind of major significant changes are so that you'll be in a position to know whether you would like to comment on those changes. And we certainly would love to hear from you regarding the impact that these proposed changes would have on the EPSCoR community. The next thing I'm going to cover is NSF's implementation of NSPM 33, and specifically the implementation guidance. And for those of you who are not aware, that NSPM 33 is guidance on national security strategy for the US government-supported research and development, and has been an activity that has been going on multiple years in development. And so we're very excited to be able to let you know how NSF intends, at this point anyway, to implement NSPM 33. Then I'm going to move to a topic completely different and one of technology, getting ready for research.gov. We've been talking about research.gov for many years now, and we are now getting to a point where we are ready to say goodbye Fastlane. So I'm here to present a bit about that as well. I will end with a couple of slides on upcoming NSF outreach opportunities, specifically the NSF Grants Conference, which will again be virtual this year, as well as some resources that you may find useful in doing your day-to-day jobs. And then end with an opportunity, like Sandra did, to ask any questions that you may have regarding what I have covered. Next slide, please. So let's talk a bit about the proposal and award policies and procedures guide, PAP guide for short. This is the anticipated timeline. We are and have already posted, as I briefly mentioned earlier, that we posted a draft document in the Federal Register for 60 days of public comment. For those of you who have not been involved in that process, you will note that we take this comment process extremely seriously and literally go through each and every comment, provide a response, and that is posted at the end of the process so that everyone can see how we plan or have addressed the comments that have been submitted. The comments are due by close of business, June 13th, And again, this is a great opportunity for you all to let us know what you think some of the impacts of the proposed changes will be. We plan to issue and post the PAP guide on our website in October of 2022. So what we always do each and every year, and again, we take this very seriously as well, we want to give your institutions ample opportunity to assess what the changes are and make any necessary changes to your internal policies, procedures, guidelines, your electronic systems, again, so that you will be prepared for when the PAP guide does become effective and goes into effect in January of 2023. Next slide, please. So let me address what, and these are not by any stretch of the imagination, all of the changes. If you actually open up the draft PAP guide, which is posted on the Policy Office website, you will see that we have highlighted all of the sections that have been changed in yellow, as well as provided a bubble to the right that explains what that change is and gives you a better sense of why the foundation is doing what it's doing. So this, again, is not by any stretch of the imagination all of the changes we plan to make, but it is very important that you understand what these changes are. So transition from Fastlane to research.gov. I basically alluded to that earlier. I will be addressing that later in the presentation, so I'm not going to spend a lot of time on it now. Use of broad agency announcements. We now have a new type of funding opportunity that many of you may not be familiar with. It is one referenced in the federal acquisition regulations. So we have added that to the type of funding opportunity section. We also have developed a system that will permit you to submit your proposals in response to a BAA as something called the BAA Management System, or BAM. And this is a great opportunity for us. Sandra alluded to our newest directorate, Technology, Innovations, and Partnerships. And in that TIP directorate, we envision that NSF will be engaging with new kinds of partners, ones that we have not typically done as much business with before. I'm going to cover that in the bullet below, but this gives us a real opportunity to try things that are not the typical way of doing business, like an NSF solicitation. This by no means will replace the solicitation. We can really believe that the program solicitation will continue to be used predominantly at NSF. This just provides us another tool in our toolkit for use when appropriate. Use of concept outlines and the new prospect tool. This is a new document that has actually been referenced in the PAP guide for some time, but it is growing in usage, and it provides an opportunity. It is a type of submission to NSF, and it is predominantly used in cases where you are submitting rapid planning proposals, rapid proposals, eager proposals, raised proposals, to give the program officer a sense of what you want to submit. They're very brief and are submitted by something called the prospect tool. And this will be very, very helpful for the community, because this will give the opportunity for the PI to submit the idea, to find out whether the program, cognizant NSF program officer believes that that idea, that concept is appropriate for submission to NSF. And they will then, as part of that, give you the necessary approval, which would be uploaded in our systems so that you could submit the planning, rapid, eager, raise proposal. In addition, we envision that on occasion, a given solicitation may ask for submission of a concept outline, which would then again be used by this new prospect tool. You will find a lot more information about this prospect tool in the draft PAP guide. And so I would encourage you to take a look at that and give us your perspective. For the first time in many, many, many years, we are making some of the most significant changes to our eligibility requirements that we have included for a very, very long time, as I mentioned. The changes are in the following areas: for-profit organization eligibility. We have rewritten essentially that to provide it to be more welcoming to for-profit organizations to submit proposals to the National Science Foundation. As I mentioned before, directorates like TIP, who will be dealing with organizations that we have not dealt with in the past, will find this to be very, very useful. State and local government eligibility. This is an area where we had very, very limited ability to engage our state and local governments in submission of proposals to NSF. And so what we are doing here is identifying that a given solicitation may call for participation by state and local governments, again, where this is applicable to the program and where it makes most sense in terms of engaging the state and local government community to submit proposals to NSF. We have a completely new eligibility category for tribal governments. They previously, this is different than our tribal college and university program, which are institutions of higher education. These are actually tribal governments. And we particularly are interested in tribal governments in a number of the programs at NSF, particularly those in our education and human resources, as well as a number of others. Unaffiliated individuals, for a long time, or at least a few years anyway, they have not been eligible to submit proposals to NSF, and we just tightened the language. The reason is because they do not have the capacity to comply with NSF requirements as it relates to the administrative requirements imposed on the entire federal government. So we have just tightened up that language a bit. We do have a new supplementary document that is called a Plan for Safe and Inclusive Field, Vessel, and Aircraft Research. We simply right now are calling it PSI for short. And I think you're going to find that this is a very helpful document that the institution will be required to submit. It's brief in nature, and we put very specific requirements in the PAP guide on what would be included in this new supplementary document. And as mentioned earlier, this is also one that we are very much trying to help the community understand specifically what we are looking for, and ensuring that those that go out and do field vessel and aircraft research are doing so in a safe and inclusive environment. Next slide, please. So this is actually an area, these two bullets that we have been working on for some time in terms of continued enhancement to both the biographical sketch as well as our current pending support. Now, I'm going to cover the aspects related to these documents as they relate to NSPM 33 implementation in the next few slides, but I wanted to be precise about the kinds of changes that will appear in the biographical sketch in current and pending support. We have been working with our colleagues at the National Institutes of Health for some time now on harmonizing our biographical sketches, our current and pending support documents, and the disclosures that we require you to submit. And so we have been looking at the way that the professional preparation language appears, and we will now be picking up language that appears and is used currently and has been used for some time by NIH with regard to professional preparation. And that certainly, that type of harmonization goes a long way for the community as they submit proposals to multiple funding agencies. This will help in that regard. Beginning in January of 2023, biographical sketches will need to be submitted via Science CV. As of right now, and up to the implementation of the PAP guide in January of 2023, we have two current methods of submitting the biographical sketch via use of a fillable format and via use of Science CV. So until the PAP guide becomes effective in January of 2023, you can continue to use either format, but we want to make sure that you understand what's coming your way. When it's in Science CV, you will be including, will apply as it does right now to all senior personnel, which is PIs, co-PIs, and faculty. As part of the submission process for the biographical sketch, you will be including, it will automatically be happen for you in Science CV, but you will be completing a required certification that appeared in the National Defense Authorization Act of 2021, Section 223, regarding a statement that the information is accurate, current, and complete, as well as providing information to the submitter that lets them know that the statutory backbone of this that requires you to understand what it means when you submit information that is not accurate, current, and complete. The final change in the biographical sketch is for the first time, NSF will be encouraging senior personnel to register in ORCID. Many of you are already familiar with ORCID. And what this will do for you is help with the pre-population of the biographical sketch, as well as in the future current and pending support. And so we're very enthusiastic about using this as a first step. Again, it's encouraged, it's not required, but we believe that the benefit to you will be significant. And so we're taking this first step in the 2023 version of the PAP guide to make sure you're aware that this is an opportunity and that it can help you complete your biographical sketch. With regard to current and pending support, we are increasing our standardization with the NSPM 33 implementation guidance. I will be going into that, as I mentioned, in more detail in the next few slides. Current and pending support will be resubmitted prior to making a funding recommendation. Again, more information in that in terms of detail. Like the biographical sketch, it will be required beginning in January of 2023 to be submitted in Science CV and include that same required certification language from the National Defense Authorization Act of 2021, Section 223. We also will be using that very same ORCID encouragement language. Again, there currently is not a lot of pre-population that is done or can even be accomplished via ORCID, but we are working on changing that and building out that capability so that we can make sure that you can, as much information as humanly possible can be pre-populated for you. Next slide, please. We are revising our GOLI requirements. GOLI stands for Grant Opportunities for Academic Liaison with Industry. And up until this time, and it will be effective in January of 2023, we are adding the capability for small businesses that meet the requirements specified in the GOLI section to actually receive funding. Again, this is for small businesses only. We go into detail on what it needs, what the institution or the for-profit small business has to have to meet this eligibility requirement. But the present time, these organizations, the industrial partner in a GOLI partnership gets zero funding. And so we are changing that and have the language in the draft that we believe will be very, very helpful for you. We also have added information on the Build America, Buy America statutes. I recently sent, the policy office recently sent out a note this past week, in which case we have been making clear of what the requirements are for this new statutory requirement. And it's very important that those of you in the community understand what this new requirement is as it relates to Build America and Buy America. And this is, just for your information, a federal-wide requirement. We were required to have implemented it by May 14th. So there will again be coverage in the upcoming PAC guide. We have also issued a new set of terms and conditions that outline the requirements of this new statutory requirement. And the bottom line is for all of you is that all iron, steel, manufactured products, and construction materials used in federally funded projects must be produced in the United States. The awardee will have to implement the requirements in its procurements, and the term and condition will be required to flow down to all subawards and contracts at any tier. Again, you will have, many in your organization will have seen these new terms and conditions. And again, these are not waiting for the PAC guide. The term and condition actually incorporates it now, but there will be a new section on Build America, Buy America statutes. We have also incorporated a new section into the draft PAC guide on scientific integrity. Now, of course, scientific integrity is important and it's not new to the PAC guide. This added section now summarizes what the Foundation's expectations are in the area of scientific integrity. All organizations and personnel supported by NSF are expected to uphold the highest standards for scientific integrity, which builds on key principles of honesty, objectivity, ethical behavior, transparency, and professionalism in the context of scientific activities in an inclusive environment that is conducive to excellence in research and education. And so what this section does is provide those reminders of the principles, expectations, and requirements that support scientific integrity that are highlighted in many topics already specified in the PAP guide. We also will be having new text boxes on the proposal cover sheet. The potential life sciences dual use research of concern. That is not a new topic for the PAP guide by any stretch of the imagination, but the folks that manage this and our biological sciences directorate feel that it's very, very helpful for the proposing organization to identify that there were potential life sciences dual use research of concern in the proposal being submitted. We also will have a new checkbox for a topic I've already covered, the plan for safe and inclusive field vessel aircraft research. If it does apply to your organization and you will have to submit that supplementary document, we will be asking you to check that box on the cover sheet so that we are aware that the plan will be uploaded. Next slide, please. So now I'm going to move to NSPM 33 and NSF's implementation as it appears in the PAP guide. As I've mentioned before, NSF and NIH have been working for some time to implement the disclosure requirements for compliance with NSPM 33. NSPM 33 was issued in January of last year, and we spent this last year to develop the implementation guidance. So the writing was on the wall for us, and we knew what was coming, and we began working to ensure that our proposing organizations, our PIs, our co-PIs, and our faculty understand what the implications are. And we've been collaborating with NIH to ensure that our disclosure requirements are as consistent as possible for use by researchers when preparing their biographical sketch and current and pending support documents, as I previously just mentioned. We have found this exercise to be extremely helpful. And at the present time, I co-chair, along with Michelle Bowles from NIH, a disclosure policy working group under the National Science and Technology Council Research Subcommittee, Research Security Subcommittee, to harmonize this across the entire federal funding agency portfolio as it relates to research and development. And so this is not, while right now what we have been working on has been with NIH, please stay tuned as this will broaden to other agencies. We are working on standardized disclosure requirements, as well as standardized templates for across the entire federal R&D portfolio for use and submission of the biographical sketch and current and pending support. And this is pretty much the second bullet. And in addition to the actual template we will be developing, we are in addition also trying to harmonize the actual data elements and instructions. We fully realize how very, very important it is for faculty, PIs, co-PIs to understand the federal expectations. So what we will be developing, what you will ultimately see is in the area of disclosures, and use of these templates is about an 80% solution. It simply can't be a 100% solution, as each agency has different statutory and regulatory requirements for the information that they collect. So we are doing our best to harmonize it to the extent possible. There will also be a new section on disclosure requirements that has been added to the draft PAP guide. And what this new section will do is identify how NSF collects disclosure information from senior personnel. Now, I've been talking a lot about the biographical sketch and current and pending support, and we absolutely count those as being as under disclosure requirements. But I would be remiss if I didn't also mention that the collaborator and other affiliations section that all senior personnel provide is also considered to be part of our disclosure requirements. And we, again, highlight what the implications are for submitting that information, the importance of the accuracy of that information, and what happens if an individual fails to accurately disclose that information. Next slide, please. So what you have in front of you is something that I hope you all are already using this very day. And this is our table entitled Pre-Award and Post-Award Disclosures Relating to the Biographical Sketch and Current and Pending Support. This table is significant in that a few years ago, when we were doing this same kind of outreach, we heard loudly from the senior personnel community that they had no idea what they were supposed to submit, what they were supposed to disclose, and where they were supposed to disclose that information. And so we've been working on this table. This is actually the 5th version of this table. It was updated in April of 2022. And when we issue a new table, we identify where the changes are to facilitate use. So for those who have not seen it, let me try to give you a sense of what is actually here on this table. And it is actually multiple pages, folks. So I'm not going to give you a slide with each page of this document, but it is absolutely essential that you, if you're not using it now, begin using this document. So along the top vertical bar, we have the type of activity that will be shown on the vertical axis. And then we have various places in the proposal: the biographical sketch, current and pending support, facilities, equipment, and other resources, and then some post-award reporting requirements, project reports, post-award term and condition. The post-award term and condition is when the AOR at the institution realizes or discovers that there was information that should have been disclosed at the time of proposal submission, but was not. And then we actually have an incredibly useful category called disclosure not required. And you don't see it on this one, but there are a number of places where, and the reason we do this is because we do consider administrative burden. We felt that some of the items, things like gifts with no strings attached, there are a number of these that we include on this list that we say we don't believe it's important for you to provide that information to us, and we don't want you to provide it due to the administrative burden that that would cause. So let me give you a couple examples here. The type of activity is undergrad, graduate, postdoctoral training, including location, major, area, and degree and year. We identify that's included as part of the biographical sketch. all of your appointments, whether they be academic, professional, or institutional, and whether or not remuneration is received and whether full-time, part-time, or voluntary is again identified in the biographical sketch. Then we have all your projects, including the project that is being submitted, that are currently under consideration from whatever source, and all ongoing projects, irrespective of whether support is provided through the proposing organization, another organization, or directly to the individual, is of course provided as part of current and pending support. But we also identify that you will have to, if you get new active support, if a PI or co-PI, and they're submitting their project reports, they will also have to update that information and provide an updated current and pending support to NSF. We also have the in-kind contributions that are supported, that support the research activity for use on the project or proposal being proposed. This one is an interesting one, because we had this previously as part of current and pending support. But what we heard was that from the community was that there's a better way to do it. And if the foundation is truly looking for all of the contributions that will be available for the project that's being proposed, facilities, equipment, and other resources is a better way to do it. And so that's what we have done. And that particular information is now included in facilities, equipment, and other resources. So again, I think you're going to find that this table provides a wealth of information that helps you comply and understand fully what NSF's expectations are. Next slide, please. So now I'm going to talk about NSF initial disclosures and update/correction requirements. So NSPM 33 implementation guidance encourages agencies to move to just in time for collection of current and pending support information. So we are taking that to heart, and that is heavily being discussed at the foundation as we speak. But it will not be included in the next version of the PAP guide, and I am not even certain what the results of those discussions will be. But I also know that when I'm presenting this information, every time I present it, someone raises a hand, either virtually or in person, and say, why can't you just do it like NIH and do current and pending support just in time? So I wanted to start this slide with that very, very important information. So what does the PAP guide say about when in the process NSF requires disclosure? And this is what we will be covering at the time of proposal submission. This is the way you do it now. You provide your collaborators and other affiliations, your biographical sketch, and your current and pending support. In accordance with NSPM 33 implementation guidance, prior to making an award, the Federal Research Funding Agency is required to obtain updated current and pending support information. Again, this is for a small percentage of the proposals that are submitted, because these are ones that consideration is being given, not a guarantee, but consideration is being given to making an award. After an award is made, if the AOR discovers that a disclosure that should have been submitted, I've already referenced this, it was on the table before, but was that should have been submitted at the time, but was not, they have 30 days to submit a post-award request to NSF. That also is already in play. And then finally, at the time of project reporting, again, I've referenced that on the last slide, PIs and co-PIs must specify whether new, active, other support has been received in their annual and final project reports? If yes, they must attach an updated current and pending support information document. This particular slide shows you that of the 4 requirements imposed by NSPM 33, NSF has already implemented 3 of them and has for some time. So we are in pretty good stead on this particular set of requirements of updating and correcting and the initial disclosures. So next slide, please. So now I am going to talk a bit about something that NSF issued as in the way of a new solicitation. So NSF issued a new solicitation with the goal of strengthening research security at institutions. The solicitation is NSF 22-576, Research Security Training for the U.S. Research Community. And again, the goal is strengthening research security. NSF is partnering with our colleagues at NIH, DOD, and DOE to find a balanced approach to research security. And this includes the development and implementation of training to help institutions meet the NSPM 33 requirements. There is a requirement in NSPM 33 that is being built out as we speak for research security programs for organizations that have 50 million or more in federal funding. And as part of that section in NSPM 33, it definitely talks about ensuring that individuals are trained. And these new modules that we are developing in coordination with our other NIH, DOE, and DOD, will help meet those training requirements. The topical areas that are identified in the solicitation are: why is research security so important? What is a disclosure policy and how will it be used? What actions can federal funding research recipients take to manage and mitigate risk? And is international collaboration encouraged? So this last bullet is extremely important. We have listening sessions to the research from the research community as part of the research security subcommittee. And what we are hearing is that the actions so far have given the impression that the government is not interested in international collaboration, and that could not be further from the truth. So it is included as one of the topical areas for these training modules. The proposal deadline is May 23rd, so coming up in just a week. And I've put a link to the solicitation on this slide. Now, just to give you a little more sense of how this will actually work, these will be the awards made, 1 to 3 will be in the way of cooperative agreements. And the organizations that receive these awards will actually be working with subject matter experts from NSF, NIH, DOE, and DOD, as well as our colleagues at FBI to work and ensure that we're working in partnership in developing these training modules. So I think this is very important for you all to know that the NSF and our other research agency colleagues are thinking very much about what these requirements are and how we can help you get ready to meet those requirements. Next slide, please. So now I'm going to totally change gears here and talk a bit about goodbye FastLane, hello research.gov. Now I've been talking about this at EPSCoR PI meetings for so long, it's it's a long time, let's just put it that way. And to nail that point home, the director issued in September of 2020 an important notice that talked to the community about the transition away from Fastlane to research.gov. And for the first time, it provided a tentative target date for completion by 2022 and December of 2022, to be precise. This was the first time that a date was actually provided and was specified to help prepare for this transition. The transition for proposal preparation and submission will be completed in time for the PAC Guide implementation of January 2023. So to give you a sense of what we have been doing to prepare the community now, currently about 80% of NSF funding opportunities are supported in research.gov. You say, okay, 80%, why not 100%? Well, we are still adding functionality. NSF is looking at the deadlines for each funding opportunity and migrating them when it could be done to give the research community the requisite 90 days advance notice. So currently, we're seeing an uptick, which is great. About 46% of proposal submission come in through research.gov, but obviously we want that number to go much higher. We want you to be prepared for that transition. And we strongly encourage the researcher community to make the transition earlier than later, because obviously a smooth transition for both the research community and for NSF will definitely be assisted by this earlier transition. It will also avoid a rush at the end, which would overwhelm the NSF help desk. And feedback also helps NSF identify any issues earlier rather than later. The funding opportunity will clearly specify whether submission via research.gov is available or required, and it's being added to solicitations wherever possible as a submission option, even when Fastlane has not been removed. Now, we are not eliminating grants.gov as an option for submission. This is a federal-wide requirement. However, there are limitations that continue to remain for grants.gov. For example, separately submitted collaborative proposals cannot be submitted via grants.gov. Next slide, please. So here is some, next slide, please. There we go. Now I'm going to give you some tips as you're considering this migration that will help you understand what we're doing here. And the most fundamental point for you to take away is that Fastlane and research.gov are separate systems that do not speak to each other. You have to start and finish your proposal in the same system. So proposal information can't simply be transferred from Fastlane to RGov and vice versa. For our solicitations that require letters of intent and preliminary proposals, the letter of intent and the preliminary proposal must be prepared in the same system as the full proposal, i.e. all in research.gov or all in Fastlane. All proposals in a separately submitted collaborative proposal from multiple organizations must be prepared in the same system, i.e. all in research.gov or all in Fastlane. Proposal file updates, PFUs, and budget revisions must all be executed in the same system as the proposal was submitted. And finally, proposals submitted in research.gov are evaluated by NSF in exactly the same way as proposals submitted in Fastlane and grants.gov. And this migration does not affect the merit review process in any way. Next slide, please. Now, we wanted to make you aware of something, one of our flagship programs. Obviously, the Faculty Early Career Development Program, or CAREER for short, is moving to required use of RGov this year. So the webinar that's identified on this screen on May 26th from 2 to 3:30 p.m. Eastern Standard Time will be a very great idea for someone that is planning to prepare or submit a career proposal to attend. And representatives from our Division of Information Systems are going to hold a technical webinar on system. It's not about what's in a career proposal. It's about the system aspects, how you do it in RGov, that will assist with the career proposal submission. Career proposals must be prepared and submitted in research.gov or grants.gov for this year. Fastlane will not be an option. So we want to make this aware of to you and hopefully encourage you and your colleagues. If you are interested in submitting a career proposal, it will be absolutely very, very important that you try and participate in this session. It is registration in advance is required. And I have a link on this particular slide to how you register for this webinar. Next slide, please. So NSF outreach opportunities. I want to end very briefly here to permit about 10 minutes or so for any questions that you may have. Our next spring 2022 NSF Grants Conference will be held virtually from June 6th to June 10th. I cannot emphasize the first bullet it is significant. There is no cost to register. If you come to an in-person NSF Grants Conference, which we have not been holding since the pandemic, it is great. We get the number of 10,000 plus registrants for our last conference. There's no cost to register. So folks at your institutions should absolutely begin to participate. There will be live and on-demand sessions. We will have a proposal preparation and merit review session. Those are recorded earlier. And then we provide an opportunity that was actually taped earlier this week. And we then will use the remainder of the session for Q&A. And so I think that will be very, very helpful for faculty. We will also have award management session for folks to understand what the expectations are should you receive an award from the National Science Foundation. We also will have the regular directorate specific sessions. So you can then go to those directorate specific sessions to find out more, and also have available your NSF colleague on the other end to answer any questions that you may have. The policy office has also begun to have a policy office webinar series, and they're topic specific sessions. The first one we did was incredibly well attended on disclosure policies, as you can imagine, available live, and then we tape them so that if you ever want to pull them down later, you are free to do so. The next one will be on June 30th, and our colleagues from DS that work in the cost analysis section and in our post-award administration, also will be available to participate and answer any questions that you may have. We also have on-demand presentations searchable by topic and by year. As you can see in the blue box, there's more information on the Policy Office Outreach website. And then next slide is just a series of resources where there are links to each of these documents. And with that, that ends the formal part of my presentation. And I would be happy to respond to any questions that you may have regarding topics I have covered or topics I have not. Thank you very much. So right now, I don't see any Q&A. But I am always happy, policy@nsf.gov. If something I covered was not clear, please feel free to send us an email and we will get you a response very quickly. So with that, I thank you for, oh wait, there is one question. Where can we find the disclosure tables? There are direct links to the tables that are all in the current and pending support section and the biographical section of the PAP guide. I definitely would encourage you, those are always linked to the latest version of the table. Like I said, there have been 5 versions of the table so far. And so this is, you can always find those links there and be sure that what you are linking to is the latest version of the table. Will someone be able to make style files and text? I've had a great deal. You know, we have been discussing that issue at NSF. And if you can send me an email, I can, LaTeX, yeah. Tech and LaTeX, I am more than happy to provide you the guidance that we have available that was prepared by Stephanie Yee in our Division of Information Systems. That's not my particular area of expertise, but I can get you any information that you may need on that. Say we received a new award in October 2022, and the new PAP guide goes into effect in January 2023. Which PAP guide do we follow? The one we submitted our proposal, the one in the award, or the newest one? So that's actually a great question. So when you submit, when you receive that new award, you are going to receive a set of terms and conditions that are referenced in the award letter. That is what you have to follow. The proposal preparation section of the PAP guide does not apply to you. Now, we are making sure that the award and administration section, part 2 of the PAP guide, is absolutely consistent, and it will be available, and our terms and conditions that will go into effect in October of 2022 will incorporate all of the necessary changes. So we try to make this process easier for you by understanding that if you're submitting a new proposal, submitted or due on or after the effective date, you're going to, in January, you're going to follow the new PAP guide. If you're submitting it before then, you're going to follow the new PAP guide. I mean, the PAP guide in effect at the time you're preparing your proposal. Is the move to Science CV only for bios and current and pending support a decision that has already been made? I have used both the PDF version and Science CV. Yes, I am fully aware that the fillable formats are much more preferable. However, yes, the decision has been made because the only way for us to meet the requirements of the National Defense Authorization Act and get an actual certification from an individual, it's not possible in the fillable formats. So that is why we are moving. Ironically, NSF is moving to use of a system that is developed and maintained by the National Library of Medicine, which is part of NIH. We are actually moving to requiring earlier than they are. But yes, that decision has been made. Any other, these are great questions, and I'm glad, yeah, I understand the film, they are a nightmare. We had tons of problems with extra pages, as you all know. We solved that problem, but the bottom line is the only way for us to truly meet our statutory requirements is to move to Science CV. Any other questions or comments? I'm down to only a few minutes, but I'm happy to answer anything else you may have. Well, I thank you all for your time and attention. Again, if there's something you didn't think, you thought of it after the session, please send us an email at policy@nsf.gov with that question, or to jfeldman@nsf.gov, and I am delighted to get you a response. With that, I hope you all have a fabulous rest of your conference. Thanks very much for your time and attention.
Thanks.